Well, welcome to the grand finale, the very last Creative Thinkers podcast. And as you can see, we're not in the studio today because the studio building is now officially closed. But we still can have one final podcast to bring some of the speakers together from the series of talks that we've had over December and January at the Studio Morland. Really pleased to welcome you all here today. It's fantastic just to highlight some of the talks and see what the takeaways were really from that and celebrate the series. They've been really lovely to run. So just a bit of housekeeping. If everyone can stay in the audience, we'll be able to stay on mute throughout. We'll record the podcast for about 50 minutes or so, and then we can have some Q&As afterwards for a while. The Creative Thinkers talks are funded by Cumberland, Westmoreland and Furness Council through the UK SPF funding. We're very grateful for that. It's been a really fabulous project to be able to do at the end of the studio. It's been lovely to be able to do this and bring people together as a kind of final farewell. The Zoom will be recorded, of course, for the podcast, which is going to go on the website afterwards, and it'll be on the website for a year. You'll be able to feed back after the Zoom, so please do that. That's great. And social media. Well, I've got housekeeping, fire exits, loos, heating, and the bar's at the back. There's no bar tonight, but do bring a glass of wine to the table if you quite fancy. Wonderful. So what I'd really like to do is to welcome the speakers that we've got today. If we can just go around and if each of you can say a little brief introduction about which talk you were on and who you are and what you do, that would be really wonderful. And then we can bring our conversation together after that. So I will nominate Nick, and then you can nominate someone after that, if that's okay.
Excellent. Right. Well, my name's Nick Greenall. I run a couple of CICs, community interest companies. One of them's quite science-y, so we do a science festival. The other one's called Creative Communities, so we work with lots of amazing artists to deliver kind of very community-focused projects. And I was on the regenerative talk where we talked a lot about soil, which is good stuff. I nominate Karen. Sorry, I meant Kate.
Thank you, Nick.
Went well.
Okay. So my name's Kate Roberts, and I'm working with farmers, market gardeners, and ecologists to help improve our soil. And that means sort of, first of all, getting rid of the toxins as much as possible that have built up over the years, and then building the microbial diversity and abundance within the soil. And I do workshops and various practical sessions, how to use a microscope to look at soil life, things like that. And it's basically about getting across the message that if we improve our soil, we can change a lot of things. We can change our own health, we can change ecological health, and we can change climate health. I mean, the Rodale Institute have put out a statement saying that organic regenerative agriculture could reverse climate change. And it's just about getting the message across, getting people to make different choices with not just their food buying, but also with any chemicals that they buy, just to sort of think twice about that. So it's really exciting. I get really positive sort of experiences myself from doing it. So I did a microscope workshop today. Somebody said it was better than watching the telly. So I thought that was quite nice. That's it, really.
Wonderful. Thank you. Who are you going to nominate?
I will nominate Annie.
Well, hello, Kate. It's funny. I thought it might come my way only because I was just thinking I'm reading Gathering Moss by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she was talking about, she was sort of very eloquent about the joys of microscopes and looking at moss through microscopes. So yes, my name's Annie Lee, and I am a coach who uses positive psychology and nature connectedness in my work. And I also run a community interest company, which is called Nature's Blueprint, which is interestingly looking at the interconnections between soil health, gut health, mental health, physical health, ecological health, and planetary health. And we run events. We've got one next week, which is exciting. And we have a really thriving community of change makers, really, all around reciprocity and sharing and supporting each other, and really connecting all these amazing things that are happening. And I was on the art and regeneration podcast. And I will nominate Becky.
Why, thank you, Annie. It's lovely to be back, because I was also in that art and regeneration discussion. So I think the whole crew is back for this final podcast, which is lovely. Oh, excuse me. Becky Nunes. I'm an artist and an educator. I'm currently associate professor of lens-based media at University of Staffordshire. So I'm based in the Midlands. And I think really I guess what I can bring to this conversation is the areas of my research which look at trying to visualize other than human elements, or our sort of planetary relations. And also, I guess in my teaching, I try to use that platform to sort of engage students, and whether that's within the university or outside in the community, in kind of citizen visualizing, I guess, in sort of looking closer and harder at those aspects that we might take for granted, such as soil. I'm heading a sort of fledgling research hub within our university called Critical Ecologies, and that's where we're just trying to make a space for interdisciplinary discussions that have the environment and the planet at the heart of them. So just again, going back to that idea of connections and trying to open up conduits for research that's collaborative across fields and across disciplines. So yeah, that's me. And Rosie, handing the baton to you.
Hello, just unmute myself. My name is Rosie Galloway-Smith, and I'm a visual artist based in Carlisle. My practice generally evolves around painting and drawing and installation artwork. I've done a few public commissions in Cumbria over the recent years. I finished my master's at Glasgow School of Art in 2018. And my work is pretty much about, well, it's increasingly about emotion. And I was part of the art and mental health podcast alongside Alex Stanforth. And just talking about just how we cope in the modern world and how we process things and how we feel.
It was a wonderful well, all the talks have been really wonderful, and Alex couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, but I think we're going to be continuing some of that thread of conversation as well. And Donna is here somewhere. She's sort of disappeared from the screen at the moment. Are you there, Donna? Maybe she's off talking to the curator. So Donna is in London at the moment. Oh, she's here. Here she is. She's at Somerset House in London at the Soil exhibition. Donna, just come off mute for a moment and tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. My passion is my work, which is socially engaged arts and really just nurturing creative potential in everyone, everyone who wants to. I love seeing people grow in confidence through engagement in the arts, and I work in well-being, education, and celebration, and a lot of that is tackling social inclusion challenges through innovative art practices which can help address these things. So my media specialisms are tapestry arts and outdoor arts, both of which I try to approach with as few preconceived notions as possible. And so really at the core of what I do is connection, and allowing space for people to collaborate with one another, sort of very much in the moment, in the place where they are, sharing stories to understand one another better, find purpose, and make sense of the world around us, really. So what interests me most is how creativity is used as a positive force for change, for individual empowerment, cohesive communities, support networks, and ultimately social change, which was what I really loved about this series of talks, because it addressed so much of that in such a powerful way. So I'd say my practice is a mix of intention and intuition, and I ultimately trust the creative process and work with it in an organic way. My tapestries with flood victims and homeless and vulnerably housed people have been described as beacons of colour, resilience and hope, and recognised, by Grace and Perry and Alice. So that's good. In outdoor arts, I create large-scale lanterns, and I'm venturing more into interactive giant puppets, which is really fun. And they're kind of designed to inspire awe and delight in audiences. So really what I aim to do with my work is make a tangible difference in the lives of people who experience my creative interventions. And I was in the Art and Young People podcast, and I think I try to work with the young person in everyone I work with.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Donna. And so Donna is also one of our studio tutors and has been running the Saturday Art Club for the last 3 years. And interestingly, the HQ of the Saturday Art Club is in Somerset House, isn't it? So you should go and say hello.
Yeah.
Which has been an amazing project, empowering young people. It's a national scheme, and they come to Somerset House and have an exhibition down there every year, which is awesome. If you're 30.
If anyone was inclined to set up a Saturday Art Club for young people, the national organisation is really supportive of the tutors and the young people. It is quite incredible, really, and it's so empowering for young people. And
it's been lovely to see the change in the young people who've gone through that and growing in confidence, etc., etc.
It's been wonderful. And they come down to London and they exhibit in London, and they have a graduation process, and it's lovely.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. And I've heard several times there from you the word connection, the words connection and the words making sense. And the Creative Thinkers, the series of Creative Thinkers talks, really sought to explore that making sense-ness, bringing together artists and, I don't want to say non-artists, but artists and specialists from different fields to talk with artists about the creative process and about engaging in a creative process. Might not necessarily be called art in inverted commas with a big capital A, but cross-disciplinary conversations drawing on that creative process and how that impacts us as people. And as stealing Rosie's, one of Rosie's quotes, the messiness of the human, being a human being. And really, all the Creative Thinkers talks came from a place of curiosity, really. There was art and conflict, art and young people, art and mental health, art and regeneration, and art and leadership and well-being. And they all sought to be expansive conversations where they opened up kind of conversations about what does it mean anyway this creative process? What does it mean to be a human? What does it need in this day and age when we're in quite a broken world? You know, how do we find our way through that? And all of the talks have come up with little gems, just really, really beautiful sort of insights in that, because the talks weren't prescriptive, they were just organic really in how they went. So I'd love to just hear from you. Really, we're here today to find out what were the highlights. I think we've got everyone here from the Art and Regeneration podcast, which is interesting. So it might go towards that way, which is great. What were the highlights for you of being part of the podcasts and being part of that discussion? And were there any surprises that came out? And who would like to go first? Just stick your hand up. Annie.
Yeah, I'll go, because one of the things that shone through in our podcast, but also has just shone through Donna and Rosie's talk as well, their introductions, was the multitude of ways that we can communicate different, I suppose, educative constructs. And just, you know, Becky with the I'm going to get the word wrong. What's the word what was it?
You're talking about the chromatographs.
That's the badger. Chromatography, chromatographs. You know, Nick with all the amazing festivals, and Becky, Kate with, you know, the microscopic stuff, that the art, the puppets, all of these different ways that we communicate. And what you said there, Kate, was about making sense. And so often we just say that like that, don't we? Making sense of it. And what does it actually mean? It means senses. How do we communicate with all the different senses? And what I heard from everybody was we're all coming at this from different angles and beautifully connecting with people's senses in different ways. So that was one thing that really came up for me.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. That's kind of inverting it really in a way, isn't it? Yeah. Rosie.
I think for me, the talks that I managed to catch hold of was the regeneration one and the leadership one, as well as my own. And it was just sort of, in some ways, being exploring data, exploring experiences, exploring viewpoints that don't necessarily are not normally part of my day-to-day life. With my own podcast, I think it was what came out of it, I think for me, was the importance of authenticity in how you approach being an artist, and how, you know, being true to your own voice. And also we talk quite a lot about boundaries and about how, you know, how do you stay kind and still manage that boundary with other people without sort of, where you stop sacrificing yourself, and but you also still manage to maintain a level of interaction with others. It was interesting for me in the talk, because I actually had a couple of friends in the audience who came along who were going through quite important personal journeys at the time. And I think for one of these friends, the whole conversation of what we were talking about was very empowering and helped him go on to make some quite important life decisions. And I love that. I love that it was, he just recently come from the States, and it was just like the way that we were so open and the audience was so open, and how we all talked about our experiences and weren't afraid of being a bit vulnerable with each other. And I think that was quite eye-opening for him and his own journey as well, because quite often that doesn't happen, I think, in the modern world. You know, it can be very surface, it can be very, oh, what do you do and how good are you? But we're also in the middle of a mental health crisis in every age group. And I think the more that we step up and be authentic about how we really feel, we're allowing a space for other people to do that as well.
Yeah. So true, so true. Lots of things are popping into my mind as a response to that. as I'm sure they will other people. Nick, I can see you nodding your head there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love hearing things and people communicate their passions. Like I know that guy on TikTok got very famous. Is it Francis Bourgeois? How enthusiastic he is about trains. But I love people hearing, being enthusiastic about soil. And I'm like, wow, soil is marvelous, isn't it? Like a real sense of wonder from something that we walk on and take for granted every day. So I love learning new things and being surprised, So it was great to hear Kate being really enthusiastic about microbes. And now I'm seeking out a few microbiologists where are you based, Kate?
Crosby Ravensworth.
Right. Yeah, you'll have to come down. We've got I work with another guy quite a lot called Charlie Winnie, who's like he's called the Willy Wonka of wood. He's taken like steam wood bending. I've got a little bit here to extremes. So he's always and we're doing a show in a couple of weeks called Man Bends Tree. He's going to be enthusiastic about trees. He's like, it's great. And his process, which is heating up wood, bending it, and making it into crazy kind of form. So I love learning new things, which I did from the kind of regenerative podcast, and and just hearing people's passions and enthusiasms for things I love.
You'll have to come on the Living Soil and Compost workshop I do. I think you'd like that.
That could be good for Windermere Science Festival.
Well, I was going to say, Kate, if you're around on the 12th, come down and see us, and you're hired. We'll get you. We'll just give you a big bucket of soil, and you can do whatever you want.
Becky, you work with soil.
Well, yes. You're going to put me back in that situation again, where I'm talking about my interest in soil on a panel with a proper soil expert. So, but yeah. I am actually, and this could be also a shameless plug for the show at Grisdale, because I am making book work at the minute, an artist book and some images. I think that hopefully will ask people that go to this show. So this is a group exhibition at Grisdale Forest in April. Opens on April the 3rd, and I think is up for 3 or 4 weeks. And it's a collection of artists who all belong to the Place Collective, which I'm sure lots of listeners to the podcast and those of you here tonight will already know about. So the work I've made, or I'm still making actually, for that show, is I suppose a sort of like a guerrilla field guide to soil in relation to Grisdale, and an attempt to open up some of those feelings of wonder and awe that was that Rosie or Donna spoke about, maybe both of you in different ways. Just to get people to think a little bit about what we stand on and how precious it is, and how easily lost, and how hard to gain back. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. But I think in response to your question about what came up from being involved in the podcast, I think for me, and especially because I've only been in the UK, back in the UK for I think this has been I'll be 5 years in March actually, but I've mainly been in Aotearoa, New Zealand since I became a grown up. So for me, it's just been really a beautiful way to add to my network of knowing what's out there and what people are doing and what they're engaged with. Because I think certainly as a creative practitioner, I feel that it's not easy to encounter others that are working in that field. Maybe there's no, I think so. Your Creative Thinkers series, Kate, is super valuable in that respect, because I think when we're making work, we're quite isolated sometimes, and and suddenly to have your eyes opened up to a collection of people who are all doing amazing things in ways that overlap with the thing you're interested in is so valuable. And I sort of wonder whether we lack, in a way, we lack some of the ways to search others out. We're all learning and doing and making and have these specialisms and these sort of pots of knowledge. I think it's so key that other people know that we have them, and that we can join together, because collective action is where it's at, isn't it? And that's what has to happen. So more of those structures, the better, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's ironic, isn't it? Because we're all tapped into this global network, which is the internet, and yet we're so much more isolated than we ever have been. It's amazing. And I think there was a point in that Regeneration podcast about local networks, about the sort of networks. It's almost like a mycelium network, sort of coming together and localized networks sort of growing in strength and coming together that way, which was one of the things that came out of that podcast, wasn't it, as well? Yeah. And I'd love to ask you in a moment, has anything changed for you as a result of being part of the podcast series, everybody? But Donna, first of all, were there any highlights for you? Because I think you actually were at every single one of the podcasts.
Yeah, I was a total podcast groupie. Yeah, I was there at them all.
It was so lovely to have you there. So it'd be lovely to hear, what the highlights for you and
yeah. So I think for my own one, I know that when I'm working with people, and especially young people, and I'm always saying about go out of your comfort zone, get out of your comfort zone. And for me, just doing the podcast was massively out of my comfort zone, and I was only really sort of coaxed into it by my sort of relationship with you, really. And it was quite terrifying and traumatic, and after I'd agreed to it, I tried to get out of it quite a lot and cancel it, and like didn't want it to turn up. And so I sort of really when I say to people, go out of your comfort zone, I have to be more mindful of like what getting out of your comfort zone really brings up for you, because it was massive for me. So I feel like I've overcome something by doing it and by being here, which was quite big, because it's not my comfort place. So, so that was quite big. Yeah,
that's lovely, and it was really nice. I'm really pleased I made you do it.
You wouldn't let me.
Because it was so lovely to see you on that, and Rosie might be feeling similar here as well. But it was lovely to have you on that sofa and at the studio, and talking about what you've been doing with the art club, but about your artwork across so many different community groups and your vast experience.
Well, it really made me think about it, which was a really good. Such a good thing to do, to just really stop and really think about how can I relate to other people, what it is I actually do. So it was really important. And I think I think there was highlights in the art and conflict. I mean, that was amazing. And there was the artist who was on the Ukraine front listening to the
Lotte Jeevan from based in Amsterdam. Yeah.
There was so many powerful moments in that. I just felt so, it was such a privilege being there. And also sort of like conflict resolution is something that I really want to do with particularly because of how much divisionism is being built into things to divide people, to sort of, get in the way of our connection with one another. So I found that I found that really interesting. And just the personal explorations with Rosie's work and yours, and and how you create your artwork and your processes is enormously insightful, and very authentic and honest, yeah, and vulnerable. Yeah, amazing, really. And the art and regeneration, I mean, that's why I'm here. Like I think I mentioned that I went to see Satish Kumar, Zach Bush, and Vandana Shiva at the Medicine Festival. And I'm really into nutrition and sort of outside of my art life, I had it, and then I sort of, here is this connection into the arts with all of these things, and how connected they are, and how hopeful they are for addressing everything that we need to address. And I like that connection. Was it the gut, from the well, it's from like the mundane to the miraculous, and from the micro to the macro. And was it like the I don't know, the gut planet, right, it was right up to planetary. Yeah, it's like from the tiny microscopic up to, and I just, it encompasses so many things that I feel really excited about. So I have done like a giant lantern mushroom installation, so I've been having ideas about doing that, but also with the mycelium connections, or in my parades doing, I don't know, anyway, lots of ideas. One of the things that struck me in the art and regeneration one was when someone said that there was a huge report, and there was only the tiniest bit of it was about what we give back, the reciprocity, and it's so much. So it's so much about that, so much, the place where we need to go, the direction that we need to go in to address capitalism, colonialism, there's so many things. And then someone mentioned about the chemicals. We keep being directed away from that. Those are really a problem, and they really are. And the fact that the bacteria can actually sort them out as well, I don't know, it's really inspirational.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about bacteria, Kate, were there any highlights for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was great to sort of looking at all this from a science point of view, but also being in the process of making a film. And the point of the film is to create visuals, because that's the stumbling block. People can't change their mindset about what runs the world, because it's microbes, not us. They can't change that mindset because they haven't got they haven't got mental images of these things. So this is what the film is about. And, talking to you guys, it did make me think about my experience with in the summer and some of the visuals we created then, and they are still doing that. And it's about for me, making sure it's scientifically accurate enough that it justifies presenting it as a visual to help guide people. And it's just a continual journey, really, of looking at what we can do to create something that's meaningful. And you do need the information as well. This is the point. You can't just have the visual, but then I think you can't have just the information. So to me, it's now we need scientists and artists to come together like never before, really. So so from that point of view, it's really great to talk to you all and listen to you all on your journey of going down the sort of route of thinking about some of these things. And just to go back to the points have already been made, really, about it's very hard to again accept this mindset change, but it solves every issue we have. Because if we want fully functioning soil, we do have to stop chemicals. Chemicals are the problem because they've put everything in the wrong place. We've taken the fossils out of the earth to create all this carbon excess, but it goes much beyond that. I mean, the sulfur is in the wrong place, the iron is in the wrong place, and only the microbes can put it back. And, however hard we try to be clever and just develop further and further into technology, we are not going to be able to do it. And so we've got to reverse. And when you think about people growing and equality, people being paid a decent amount for what they're growing. And, talking about, you're right, although we've got the internet, we have lost contact. Well, what's going to have to happen if people want enough vegetables, in particular, to keep them going through the year, that are grown in fully functional soil, so fully phytochemically rich, covered in microbes, they're going to have to get together as communities and grow them, and support each other to do it. So it solves that issue. I mean, global issues it solves, such as inequality there, the lack of fair trade. Yeah, I can't think of an issue it doesn't solve, but we do have to take a step back with all of our materialism, and what we actually want to possess is just not possible if we really want to look at doing this properly. But it's a journey, and the first step in that journey is for people to recognize that supermarkets are not the place to buy their food. And I'm not saying that all the food in the supermarket is bad. I mean, obviously, if it's really truly organic, that's great. You are starting to get some better quality meat in some supermarkets, although I'd say buy your meat from a regenerative farmer. But it's there. The journey started, but it's just taking. I mean, at the end of the day, the supermarkets, the global corporations, and they don't care. They don't care about you and the amount of chemicals. When you walk into a supermarket, maybe I said this before, it's my current phrase, that the most common ingredient in the supermarket is glyphosate, and it's going to kill you. So it's going to kill most people anyway, and it's just being ramped up all the time. And then the chemicals that have been banned are coming back in again as soon as farmers make a plea that they need them, and that's all just crazy. So I'm just really, my mission in life now for the years I have left is just to encourage everybody to go down this route. And I think the motivation to give people is that they're going to be better off in their own neurological functioning. I try to avoid using the word mental health, but actually I mean mental health, if they eat proper food, real food. And our microbes in our gut, for everybody who's had antibiotics, are compromised. And it varies. I mean, it's between 50 and 70% down, which is crazy. But that matches ecology. So ecology is also around 50 to 70% reduced in diversity from where it was before we got going with our chemicals and our ploughing and all the other destructive things that we thought would be a good idea.
Yeah, it's so interconnected, everything, isn't it? It really is.
So
it's just all part of the same web, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And what's great about the fact it's a web is that although something harmful harms the whole web, something healing heals the whole web. And I think this is a great visualization. We've got somebody working on this at the moment, a little animation showing the ripples across the web by sort of one healing action.
That's really lovely that you said the word healing, actually. And because it's such an overwhelming environment that we're in, isn't it? So socially, economically, climate, and the fact that you said that there is a way that there can be healing, also connects with what Donna was saying earlier, maybe about the role of art being a connector for change, a positive force for change, inspiring awe and delight and hope, that kind of healing and hope. So I kind of feel in these discussions that they've touched on sort of both ends of the spectrum, really, and that perhaps that's where the place of art might be within these sort of kinds of discussions, both in exploring where we are, but also in providing a kind of platform or a way in to work better in the future somehow. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Has anything changed for any of you as a result of being part of the discussions? Or what are your key takeaways? We've got about 10 minutes or so. Rosie.
I think for me, it was quite often as an artist, you're kind of like puzzling over things, and you work alone, you work at home or in your studio, and you're rattling around inside your own head, and you're reading all the news and all the articles, and you're thinking things. And it's so wonderful, I found, in actually being with the audience, of that connection, of that shared experience, and talking about risk taking and talking about being brave. as well, which I think in the current climate, it's more important than ever to hold on to those values of not being afraid to speak up and express yourself. And yeah, I think just I felt a lot of clarity as well. I think I'm one of those people that I when I talk, I'm thinking, and I'm discovering what I'm thinking as I talk out loud. And I sort of discovered, it was very interesting for me to actually sometimes hear what was coming out of my mouth that I didn't even know was going to come out of my mouth within that period of time. But I really genuinely loved feeling the connection with other people that, like, I was doing something to do with the one to do with mental health, and my approach towards mental health isn't about so much about wellness and healing. It's more about expression. It's more about, like, oh my God, I'm feeling these strong and difficult emotions, and sort of putting it out there and allowing other people to go, yes, I feel that too. I know that feeling. I know how that feels. And for me, it's very valid for people to do that, rather than trying to always just sort of smooth it down and, oh, let's make it nice for you. Sometimes you have to stand up and go, ah. And I think, with the regeneration talk as well, to do with like microbes and the loss of microbes in soil and things like that. I'm feeling that from Kate as well. It's like, we need to talk about the things that aren't okay, rather than trying to pretend everything's okay. And for me, that's very much part with mental health and just connecting. And the more we talk about shared experiences, that comes back to conflict resolution as well. It's like, what do we have in common? What's our shared humanity? What are our shared fears? What are our shared feelings? We're not so different from each other, actually, if we talk about it. And I really appreciated that aspect of being part of these talks. So thank you, Kate.
Lovely. Thank you, Rosie. Does anyone else have any input on how it might have changed their perspective? Or Becky?
I think, again, just speaking from my own sort of background, I guess, as an artist, as an educator, as someone that's constantly seems to be writing some sort of funding bid or, application thing where you're, and you're trying to, basically you're sort of in competition for a pathway to make the work, to do the thing, and it's in a competitive bid situation, or you're always being asked to innovate, you're always being asked to demonstrate impact, you're always, there's quite a lot of pressure on creative thinkers in the current environment to be impactful, productive, innovative, and at the, I guess, to win out against other research teams or whatever. And I find that, that's quite I suppose it's a difficult environment to navigate, because it brings up all sorts of imposter syndrome stuff for a start. And I think maybe you were talking about that, Donna, a bit, because your practice sounds amazing. So why on earth you would feel out of your comfort zone in talking about it is baffling to me, but I get it at the same time. I think we all have a bit of that maybe, but also just this idea that we're kind of pitted against each other, or we're in our little silos or whatever. And it's really lovely to have an opportunity like this to sort of set all of that aside and just go, look, we're all actually, we're all moving in the same direction, and we're all doing useful things, and we don't have to measure how useful right now, I don't know. I mean, obviously, ideally, they would be useful to a degree, but perhaps we could self-measure that. We don't have, I don't know, I'm sort of on a rant now, but I don't know if this is resonating with anyone else, but I think it's just really lovely sometimes to be in a shared space thinking what we do is we all make up a patchwork of forward motion, maybe a bit like your tapestries, Donna, and we don't have to be the whole flipping tapestry. We're just the threads, and that's good enough. And what we're doing is good enough. And so that's actually a nice feel. That's a good feeling to have. So that's my little rant.
That's lovely. What a lovely insight. Who just stepped in there? Was it?
Yeah, me. I was just going to jump on the rant, Becky, because I'm absolutely with you, and I'd say everyone's with you too. the beauty of things like this, and so what's changed for me is just that, so fabulous to speak to people that are on the same page, but that are talking to different people, because sometimes we're in an echo chamber and we can find people, yes, they're gravitated towards us, but then we can't get outside of that. And so to make these connections with people that are doing different things and really impactful, I think it's necessary. It's not just nice to have, it's really necessary for that social change, for that climate change, ecological change, for this mass great turning, as Joanna Macy would call it. You know, we have to have these types of connection. So yeah, I'm just jumping on, and sorry, Jilly, about I've probably really knackered the levels now because I got a bit excited and was loud.
I'm gonna jump on quickly as well, and just talking about, like, I've had quite a few conversations with people about it. It's sort of being grassroots almost, you know, that kind of like the whole, you know, I hear that the process, the system, it has to change. You know, it's like so much more has to come from the practitioners, from the freelancers, from the people who are on the ground trying to make a difference and trying to figure things out and trying to put it together. And I think there's finally slowly there's starting to be a recognition of that, you know, that like we're not the last on the plate. We're actually, maybe we should be the first. And let's see what comes from us. Let's put the individuals before the institutions with regards to art, and see where that takes us into the future. I think.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I was at a meeting thing in Barrow in Furness earlier in the week, and there's a lot of funding coming to Barrow quite soon. And the kind of the gist of the meeting is that culture should be at the heart of any successful city or community. Is what now, unfortunately, the centre of Barrow is pretty dead. There's lots of people work at BAE making submarines, and they leave at 5 o'clock and don't necessarily live in Barrow. They live in nice little villages on the outside. But having a kind of successful community, you know, culture really needs to be at the heart of it, really.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think it's a kind of double-edged sword, though, isn't it? Because now that's being recognized, probably because of fiscal imperatives, you know, it's like, oh, who can we draft in to resuscitate the culture? We need some artists, you know, and it's like, well, you guys broke the culture and we have to fix it for you. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so, you know.
And that's true in the healthcare system as well.
Right, I'm sure.
We go through cycles of this, you know, artists used as sticking plaster by policymakers who don't actually understand the impact that art has as a fundamental core of communities in every area. You strip back the creative thinking, you're left with a real echo kind of, yeah.
I've had quite a lot of conversations in the last decade about let's make art useful. And I think actually I find that completely, the more I think about it, the more bizarre that is. It's like, you know, that's like saying let's make poetry useful.
Yeah.
It's like poetry isn't supposed to be useful in terms of functionally. It's supposed to be useful in terms of it touches your soul. It touches your, you know, it kind of opens up, makes you think about things differently, makes you kind of have shared experiences that are so perfect and so simple. And for me, that is the role of the artist. It's like we act like a kind of mirror to society. We're not supposed to be making art useful. I mean, like it so much can go towards the spectacle these days, I think.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's not about the bigger picture, it's about the deeper meaning. And I think that's what's lacking right across the board in the arts a lot at the moment, is that kind of, we don't have to keep going outwards and beyond. Let's dig into our fundamental humanity and who we are and how we feel. And that's how we speak to people, and that's how we don't patronize people either. You know, it's not, art isn't just for some people who've had an art education. It's like there are universal experiences and thoughts and emotions that everybody understands, and that's how you reach out to people. And that's the end of my rant. I'm going to
I love what you say about art being a mirror, and it's very like coaching like that, isn't it, Annie? You know, it's a mirror, and it's not judgmental, it's just showing you back what's going on as a reflection. Personally, I feel the purpose of art in the work that I do as an artist is actually to disrupt and slightly upset the boat, because I believe by slightly upsetting the boat and being a little bit disruptive, you can change how people see things. And I like that. And so for me, that's how but art has so many different purposes and for different people. Becky.
Yeah, I don't know how my hand got up there, but yeah, and I think that's, again, it comes back to the sort of funding models and stuff, because I think that, you know, there should be room and money and support for all forms of art practice, because at the you know, the pendulum has swung now to the point where, because of what we just discussed, the sticking plaster thing, really weirdly, the only sort of art that gets funded now is art that has social practice written into the bid, you know, and while you know, well, that's great, but there are practitioners like yourself, you know, like what you've just described, Kate, or, you know, artists who want to make work that doesn't actually directly deal with that, and there is no space for that now. It's just, you know, I think in the Midlands anyway, there's one remaining gallery that still has a remit to show international art at all. So, you know, Birmingham Icon Gallery in Birmingham, for example, now, you know, they had a change of director. Well, they had, the director was removed, I don't know, 4 years ago or something, and now they have a board of trustees. And because they are massive, they are only really funded by Midlands Health. The work must have a social remit, and you know, that's impoverishing for art practice. That's impoverishing for people that go to galleries. That's not, you know, like. So we've gone the other way, and as you know, I just think, we're being asked to carry a load on our shoulders that doesn't fit everyone's practice, and yeah, I think it comes back to that thing of it's a sticking plaster for you know, capitalist ills.
I increasingly see artists I know and art institutions I know going towards a kind of don't scare the horses. Do you know, like, let's play it safe, you know, like, and I don't know whether that's indicative of what's happening internationally, you know, but I sometimes feel that, like, again, it's that kind of, it's quite patronizing, I think, to people to say that they can't handle anything that's difficult or uncomfortable. You know, of course they can, you know, like, why wouldn't they? And I think, I think, like you were saying, there's not enough space for that now. It's very much about what can art do to, like, well, recently, what I did with the Workington Art Trail, I had an opportunity to do my own artwork as well as work with a group. And and I think what gets diluted is those artists' voices, those individual practices, or you get invited to come along and work with an NPO, and then they say, yeah, oh, you know, oh, we don't want you to do this, we don't want you to do that. And I'm like, well, why the hell are you employing me? You know, do you want me to be an artist with a distinctive practice or a distinctive vision, and, you know, this is what I do, or do you just want a facilitator? And I, you know, I think something's getting lost in that, you know, that lack of it is diluting the ambition of projects, and there's a lack of ambition in believing in artists that aren't already a big name, you know, giving people chances to take those risks and to try out ideas. You know,
it sounds to me like we need a revolution. Bring back
every idea that works, and that's true in everything in life, and we all learn. But I'm so tired of safe. I'm so tired of what's just repeated. And oh, well, if Banksy did that in London, let's do it everywhere else. And it's like, well, that must have been fresh and exciting and important once, but it's just so diluted now. And there are so many amazing creative voices that aren't getting the bandwidth, really, I think. And so that, I feel like you gave me a little bit of bandwidth with this with these talks, Kate.
So that's lovely. That's so really great to hear. And I think particularly with Rosie and Donna, I felt on the closing of the studio, and how as an artist we quite often work in a silo or in a kind of self-referential space, and sort of don't get the opportunity to talk about our work on that kind of platform. It's been really nice to actually put you both on the spot and to share what you do with the audiences around here, and actually and give you a sort of platform. And it's been really amazing to hear what's come out of all of the talks. Really, for me, the highlight of all of the talks has been well, the studio, we run it for nearly 8 years, and it's always been a safe space for creative exploration, which is what I now do with my coaching in that kind of space. But the studio space has always been that. And I think it really came into its own for this series, for this program. The feedback that we got from people who were in that space, and the vulnerability of the conversations, for example, with the conflict talk, and what was able to happen within that holding space was really, really special. And I'm going all tingly, actually. And it doesn't come as a surprise, but I'm absolutely delighted that that's been able to happen. And I think everyone who's in that space has somehow been sort of positively affected in some way from being able to be part of some kind of discussion around the big topics that we've touched on. And I think art's a way into that, but that's not making it art and instrumental, giving it a purpose, but it's certainly a way into it. It's a different kind of language. So it's been really amazing to do that. Before I bring the grand finale podcasts to a close, are there any comments from anyone, just as a closing statement? Rosie?
I just wanted to talk about your talk, actually. And I found it, talking about leadership and then talking about like models of leadership around the world and what is lacking, and how things often go towards a certain slant and things like that. And we were talking about how art could impact that, impact leadership. And that blew my mind quite a lot, as you know, because of the conversations we've had after it.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because everyone's a leader. We all lead our own lives. We all have a personal leadership, step. And everyone's creative. We're born with creativity. Everybody's a creative person. And I think we touched on in that particular talk, how that there's so much that leaders can learn from creative people, from creative thinkers, actually, just by the way that they approach the world. So yeah, no, it was quite nice to sort of bring the circle round really in that way. So we've touched on so many things today, haven't we? What a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming back together again. We've touched on microbiomes, ecosystems, healing, the healing nature of coming together in conversations and creativity, that dynamic organic farming can reverse climate change. I've got lots of things written down here, certainly about connecting. There's this big theme coming out for me, this big thread about connecting people, connecting disciplines, connecting locals, connecting all sorts of different webs, and a sense of wonder and awe and delight, that comes into the creative process as well. So thank you, everybody. It's really, really lovely. Thank you, everyone, for taking part. Thank you to all the audiences who've been with us along the journey as well. Thank you to our funders who've been able to make this happen. I'm so grateful. It's just been a really lovely way to go out. And thank you to Gilly, Jarman and Mill, who have been bringing everything together in the background. It's been really great. All the podcasts will be on the website for a year or 18 months. So really, really encourage everyone to go on there and listen to those and share them as much as possible. That would be great. And I'd also love to get thoughts from anyone who listens to those. So we'll pop a form up, or our emails, for anyone to input and feedback. That'd be really, really lovely to hear.